and welcome to another Fireside Chat, the show where we sit down and talk with industry professionals regarding topics in healthcare and business. Today, I am very, very excited to have the Indigenous Health Services and Reconciliation team from Niagara Health here with me. Throughout the chat, we'll be talking about their health services plan, what the team's mission is, and as well as Indigenous healthcare as a whole. I'm your host, Katrina, and today I will be joined with Shyann, Jessica, and Charity. To start off this fireside chat, we will be reading a land acknowledgement for Niagara Health, and then we'll proceed with a smudging ceremony before we get into the questions. For our land acknowledgement, Niagara Health is honored to provide care on lands where Indigenous peoples have lived for thousands of years with their own unique cultures, identities, traditions, and languages. These lands are steeped in a rich history of the First Nations, such as the Huron, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island who live and work in Niagara today. We are committed to listening and learning more about the history and current experiences of Indigenous peoples and acknowledge our responsibility to take meaningful action towards reconciliation in the healthcare system. So to start, we will be performing a smudging ceremony. And would one of you mind walking us through the importance of a smudging ceremony, what it represents, and kind of why we're doing it today as well?
So one of the first things that the Indigenous Health Services team implemented inside the hospital was the access to traditional medicines and the smudging ceremony actually right inside the hospital. So this can happen at the patient bedside, it can happen outside, wherever we're able to meet those patients and family members where they're at, and we can offer that smudge for them. So it's about cleansing and having those good intentions. So when we're smudging, we can start by washing off our hands and then just directing the smoke to any part of our body that is needed. So that might be over your head, so you can have those clear thoughts, into your heart, so you can walk in that good way, and anywhere in your body where you may be just needing it or holding a little bit of stress. So that has been very important to our Indigenous patients and family members, to have that dignity and respect that they can still go about their traditional practices well inside the hospital setting.
And is it part of kind of the healing journey for Indigenous patients?
So people use the smudging ceremony for like the spiritual connection and that connection to Creator. So when we're done today, and we will actually bring this ash outside, and we'll connect that back to the land, and anything that we thought about during this time will be sent to Creator or that higher power, and that's that connection. So if you need help right now, that could be something that you're asking for, and just asking for that path to be cleared.
Perfect. Amazing. Just set it in the center. Well, thank you so much for explaining that. Do you mind quickly introducing yourself and also introducing the Indigenous Health Services team and reconciliation here at Niagara Health?
I'll go first. My name is Charity Beland. I am Mohawk from Six Nations of the Grand River, as well as Ojibwe from Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. I am Turtle Clan, and I am fortunate to be the manager for the Indigenous Health Services team here at Niagara Health. And and I love it. We'll just go.
I'm Jessica Baskin, and I'm on the Indigenous team here at Niagara Health. My role is patient relations, so I'm focusing more on compliments and concerns, following Indigenous patients through the hospital, and offering to support them and advocate for the best care experience while they are here. And I've been here at Niagara Health for about almost a year. So almost a year.
I'm Shyann Jenkins. I was born and raised in Hamilton, but my family is from Six Nations, and we're Cuba Turtle Clan. At Niagara Health, my role is community outreach and engagement. So I go out in the community and I engage with the Indigenous population and find out what they actually want here inside the hospital for programs, services, bringing in elders and just helping the community navigate the system when they come here, and overall just trying to create a safer space at Niagara Health for all patients.
Amazing. Thank you and welcome to the Fireside Chat. I'm very excited to have you here. Do you mind kind of just walking us through what your team does? Also, congratulations. I know that you won the Team Excellence Award for Niagara Health, so woo, congrats. Do you mind kind of walking us through what your team does and your mission statement as well?
Sure. So as we've said, we've been here for just over a year and a half. And aside from the three of us, there are three other women who sit on the team. And two, so Jolene and Kate, are both patient-facing. So when the referrals come in, they're the ones that respond typically to support patients at the bedside with any kind of advocacy, communication, support, also helping staff understand how to provide the best care for the patients. And we have a relatively recent role, Tanya, who is a staff development expert and focus, and that's really about expanding the staff understanding and awareness of the importance and the impact of understanding culture and racism and some of the challenges that, as community members, as Indigenous people, as patients, as staff, that we face every day. So we all have very different roles, but all very important roles, and we all work together really, really well to make sure that we're supporting our community inside of the hospital as well as outside of the hospital and taking care of each other along that journey.
It sounds like the community is a really big role in kind of what your team does and being able to reflect the thoughts and values of community members and bring it into the hospital. Is that correct?
The community is why we're here. Each individually and as a whole, it's the passion for community, being members of the community. Those are all really, really important things, because a lot of what we do is building relationships and trust. So making sure that as our community members are coming into the hospital, they know who we are and they know that we have their best interest at heart in a system that doesn't always seem to have that same concern or care.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important, is being able to, if you're speaking about equity, being able to actually represent those individual needs. Now, I know that the relationship with the healthcare system may not have always been the best, and I know that that's what we're working towards with the reconciliation. What would those unique needs for Indigenous patients be? Would it be different from a non-Indigenous patient coming into a hospital?
Yeah, so this is a very big topic that we talk about often because it's very large, but to kind of just break it down, there's a lot of different stigmas that go towards Indigenous people, and that could be just based on statistics or just like appearance. But there's access to healthcare is not even that accessible for Indigenous people, meaning transportation and costs. Access to education is also a lack of in the Indigenous population. But with the team here, we're able to kind of, if we can't do it, we outsource to community. So if we're not able to provide, it's kind of a call to a community organization, and they're able to kind of drop some of those barriers. And that's another reason why it's so important to go to the community, because they're the experts on themselves. So they kind of will come to us and be like, I actually want to go to the hospital, but it's getting there. Mm-hmm. Okay, well then we'll work on that transportation, or access to healthy food is another big one. Yeah, that's just a little tidbit.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask, I was like, so one thing that you mentioned was transportation. So then if a patient needed the access to healthcare, like the hospital, that would be arranged for them then?
Through community agencies. we at the hospital aren't able to provide that transportation, but we can outsource to the Native centers or any Indigenous organizations, because those are the other community experts as well. So they also understand the gaps in healthcare and access to that for Indigenous patients. So they already have programs that are in the community to support those community members.
Awesome. That's awesome. I did kind of want to ask a more personal question to each of you. Is there anything that led you specifically to wanting to advocate for Indigenous healthcare? If you feel comfortable speaking about it, is there something that happened or you've observed that kind of drove you to be part of this team?
I'm happy to start. So for myself, the easy and quick response is life, right? Life leads you to do those things. In my previous roles, whether they were within my family or within the community, it was always important that if you had a family member going to a doctor's appointment, somebody was attending with them. And not only for the reason of making sure that they understood and that the information was communicated and everyone had that, but also to make sure that they were supported in that visit and that they were cared for. One of the roles that I held before coming to the hospital was a patient navigator. And it's really unfortunate, but you would see situations that just because I was attached to a person, just because that title of patient navigator was attached to a patient, they would receive better care. They would receive information quicker. Staff would spend more time communicating things with them, whether it was coincidence or not. I don't really believe in coincidence. However, you did see an increase in care, and the challenge was you were only able to help the person that you were right there with, in front of. And that meant if I was here with this person, there was 15 other people that I couldn't be there with. So it's we need more than a one-to-one. We need one-to-one, but we also need systemic change. And this was an opportunity to do that. So for myself, that's why.
And then I've worked in the Indigenous community in Niagara for pretty much my entire life. In various different roles at various different organizations. And then when this opportunity came available, I was just like, it's really bringing everything full circle in a way that really hasn't been done before. And to be able to be a part of a team that's able to make change every day, little by little, I thought, wow, I see what people are doing within the hospital and you hear about it. So I'm like, I would love to be a part of that team. And then just every day being here and being able to even be that familiar face for people in community, just making it easier to access by just offering like a friendly voice and just letting them know that, we're working on making change and for them to trust in us so that we're able to make those changes. And so, yeah, all of the roles that I've worked on in community are like stacking on top of each other now. And it's like, oh, right, I remember this from years ago working on different, different roles within community. And then now them just coming together and being able to help in a way that I could never have imagined. So, yes.
Yeah, and for myself, it was my whole career has been in health. I've always known that I wanted to go into health, but my personal life, I was always spending in traditional medicine, traditional wellness, and finally came a job that I could blend both of those. So I was always going in the community and learning from those elders and knowledge keepers. But I also went to nursing and pre-health and PSW, and it was a way when I started this job to blend both of that traditional side and the health side. And because of just being Indigenous and being able to see what I was struggling with myself with health, but also my family members, I was able to then sit and be that supportive person for them, just understanding health and understanding that language so that I could break that down for them and be that safe person for them. Also to get over their triggers and fears of sometimes just sitting in the waiting room might become overwhelming, and just having that safe person than to just kind of keep them in the waiting room was what I was doing like in my past. And just helping out any family member that I could. And this is how I kind of saw myself going towards more of Western medicine. And when I finally found a role that could bridge that, and I could vocalize the gaps that are in healthcare and everything that I was seeing, it really felt like it was finally a real change moment where I could be like, I learned all of this from school and I learned all this from community, and now there's this one position that I can walk on a path that was bridging both of them.
Amazing. I think like one thing that I was kind of reading up about your team, and also like if we're talking about themes in equity, I think the term like bridge really kind of stood out to me in terms of what we do with HealthHub as well, in terms of like bridging digital solutions and having information at the bedside, but just being able to bridge that gap between Western and like your community Indigenous based healthcare. I think that's such a valuable set of experiences to have. And then Jessica as well, what you were saying, and just having like different experiences in your past personal and professional career. I find every day there's new ways that things that seem really obscure that I've done, they fall in, and I'm like, oh, I've got a skill that I can bring here. Like it's so strange. Like, but yeah, it's amazing that you guys have such a diverse team, and I'm sure if we went throughout the rest of your members, you would find very inspiring stories as well. So thank you for being here at Niagara Health. So I have brought it up a few times, just the term healthcare equity. I know that's a mission, or the mission for your team. Do you mind kind of just defining what equity is? I know that some people listening might not have a full understanding of what equity versus equality is and that sort of thing.
No, it's a big all right. Who's going to take it and run with it? So the biggest thing in understanding equity is we are all starting from different places, different experiences, and different needs. And we want to make sure that each one of our patients and community members has everything and anything that they need to achieve optimal health, but whatever that optimal health is for that individual. So what's really important with us and the way that we approach health is understanding that it is not only a physical symptom, side effect situation, that it is a whole being approach. So when we go in and we sit at the bedside with the patient and, they're telling us physical symptoms, and we're understanding that they're also struggling because they don't have family around them, and because, they maybe have pets at home, and because they've been struggling with other situations, it's how can we be here, support you mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and bring that wraparound care, service, and support so that you can heal. Because just because we serve a physical need does not mean that you will heal and do well, because there's so many other things that impact how you go through that journey. And we recognize that there are only certain things that we can do, and that's why we lean heavily on community organizations, other members, other types of medicines like the smudging. Because when we're in hospital, just the symbol of having the shell and the fire, that gives us our water and our fire. There's balance in that, and then we have the smoke. There's so much that goes into all of the things that we're doing and how we're speaking and caring for people, that equity is not supposed to be about all of the disadvantages, right? So it's how do we bring together all of the benefits and all of the strengths that we have to move people to a place of healing, and approach that in a way that lends us to, our goal is, we have a broken leg, we want that fixed, and we want to be able to walk out of here and feel good, right? So that may take me something different than what it takes you. But the goal is that we feel individually, we have that recognition of, I feel well and healed when I leave. So, and I think that's one of the challenges, is if we were taking an approach of equality, it's, well, you got a cast and I got a cast, so you're healed. Well, no, because I needed other things in order to facilitate that healing. So it's just sitting in that space and really making sure that the patients have the opportunity to identify what it is that they need. And that takes trust, and that takes a relationship building so that they feel heard and seen and respected, that they can communicate those additional needs. Because typically that's not what healthcare is. You go in, you say, I have a headache, here's a pill, right? And it's no, okay, what else is causing that? What else can we help with? How can we alleviate? And have some laughter, right? And really, really lean on just that relationship space so that it's positive all around.
It's interesting as you're speaking, there's a few things that are kind of running through my mind. I think one thing that's really important to touch on is now when we look at like Western medicine, we're putting more emphasis on like the mind-body relationship and how important community is in actually facilitating full recovery, as you said. So even like when you think about psychological factors in terms of healing, you find that people that have a greater community connection have way more protective factors towards certain risks as well, like healthcare risks. So I think that's wonderful to bring in that community. And the other thing that I was thinking about too is when I'm going around the hospitals, and I know I'm connecting with people for bedside terminal, so it's different, but so often people just want someone to be able to listen and feel heard. And that makes such a big difference when you're talking about healthcare and just helping someone feel like their best self. And I think the fact that the team is here, I feel like you're making progress every day towards being that familiar face in the halls and saying, oh, well, even just the recognition that the team is here, saying there's people that are going to be able to advocate for me and help me. So
There's a lot of, as Shyann alluded to earlier, there's a lot of historical and current challenges that people come into the hospital with that people don't see. So when you have somebody who can have that level of understanding and sit and really appreciate what it means to hear you and take those concerns seriously, it goes a long way. Because if you're supposed to be trusting the medicine and trusting the treatment plan and trusting all of these things, but you have no reason to trust those things, at least if you have somebody who's sitting with you, you can put the trust in that individual, and then we can make sure that things are as best they can be and really do that advocacy work for the individuals. So,
and just providing the context as well for why there have been barriers to accessing healthcare in the Indigenous communities, like that goes a long way, I'm sure.
As even in explaining things to staff, right? Where it's the, we were having a conversation earlier that, Indigenous people, a lot of us don't have family physicians. And we don't have family physicians because we don't like going to the doctor. We don't like advocating. We don't like complaining. We don't like doing any of those things, which then puts us in a space of having more complex needs. And the way our medical system is currently working, the individuals who are low maintenance get the family doctors, because then you can have a roster of however many patients per physician. So when we do come in, we're really complex. Right? Yeah. So it's just, a disadvantage on top of a disadvantage. And so we come in and we're like, okay, we need this, we need this, we need this, and do our best to support.
Right. And this is why it's so important to have that partnership with community, is because we would like for when people come into the hospital that we're getting a soft transfer. And then when we're able to work with them within the hospital, and when they're being discharged and going back into community, we want to make sure that we're doing a warm transfer on the way out, right? So we want to have that whole circle just going, so that we're able to call on people from the outside, they're able to call on us, and then reverse when they go back into community, so that we're just ensuring that they do have that full wraparound support that's so greatly needed.
So we've brought up community, and I know that Niagara Health is working towards becoming an Indigenous ally organization. Has that been echoed out into the community? What are thoughts and feelings on that? Is that a significant change in the system?
That's a you. It's a you question.
It will be.
Okay.
It will be a significant change. The biggest thing in understanding around, Niagara Health working towards becoming an ally organization is that something that the community acknowledges in a title that the community gives to the hospital, recognizing the work that's happened and the approaches that we've taken and all of these things, and saying, okay, we recognize that, we are all on the same level. We are doing all of this work together, and it is for the benefit of community. And there's that mutual respect. And it's essentially sitting us all in a circle, right? There's nobody higher than the other. It's not about power. It's not about any of those things. It's that we have that shared goal. And there's that respect and recognition that we're all doing the work within our roles and responsibilities the best that we can. So when we get there, yes, it will be significant. And it's exciting to know that the hospital is committed to doing that work, because it's going to be a process, and it's going to be a shift for the way that we do things, the language that we use, the approaches that we take. Just, it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of learning that Niagara Health has committed to undertaking. So that's exciting.
Yes, and it's very interesting at this point that, we've come together as a team and we're feeling supported within the organization. And so then bringing that back to community as well, right? Because that's not something that they would normally think would happen. Like, you go to the hospital and you're not heard, or you go to the hospital and, the reason why you came wasn't addressed, and then you're back into community. So by having, building that trust, and then being able to show individuals in community that when you do come to the hospital and we are able to advocate for you and we are able to make change, then that builds trust, right? So it will take some time for that to happen, but every single day something happens that's making it better for everybody that comes into the hospital. So by us as a team being able to have that ability is mind-blowing some days, to be honest.
It's very exciting. And it's a blessing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
sure.
And we see that those effects ripple through the organization, where it's not only us leading these conversations and leading these changes. There's other, non-Indigenous staff that are stepping up and saying, I recognize this isn't okay. How can we work to change this? How can we build capacity within this department? And really looking for honest and authentic answers and ways to support patients better. And that's the change. So
yes. Really exciting, kind of hearing everything and knowing your plans as well. I know that when we were speaking earlier, we talked about having visibility with artwork, with cards with your information on it. And I did kind of want to call to the artwork we have in the center here. Correct me if I'm wrong, we have the Turtle Island illustration by Delbert Jonathan, Jr. Do you mind just quickly kind of talking about what it represents, or why it's in the hospitals?
Yes, I can kind of speak to it. So these large paintings are in all of the emergency departments, and it's to create that safer space. And what's actually been happening is when our Indigenous patients come in, this is like the first thing that they see. So they kind of stop, but it's right before registration. And it's just nice to be able to say, like, I saw the Indigenous painting over there. Do you have Indigenous support? So actually right in the emergency department, it has gotten some attention, and we're able to get referrals that way just by them seeing this. They know that our team is here. But we have been explaining to staff a little bit more about like the roles and responsibilities of everything in this picture. Like, you'll see there's water, and there's like the sun colors and the fire colors, but every animal and plant life on here has a different role and responsibility. And we've been saying that this is kind of like the emergency department, how all of those different roles have to come together as a community, but they don't have to step on each other's toes, because they all have their own role, and everything gets done in the emergency department just like the community. And another piece is that the medicine wheel is in here. And I represent like yourself or the patient as that little blue center spot. And then you have to balance the 4 quadrants of spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. But that's just the 4. So your goal is to balance all of that every day as your personal wellness, but that ripples out as well. So you also are thinking about your home. So just like we were talking about in like the health equity, we also think about like your home life. What is that person doing at home? And if they're not at home, who is doing that, or is it not being done? But then that even ripples out into the community, because what was their community role and what is their role in the community that maybe they're not able to live up to as fully as they were before for whatever illness or whatever brings them into the hospital. But when they're here, then we can kind of focus on all of that and get them back into the community as their full whole self. So just as the team, even if it's just that friendly face as a conversation, and sometimes it's creating just artwork to start that conversation. And just so we're also hoping that as more artwork comes in, that might be a spot where if you are feeling overwhelmed or triggered in the hospital, that you could then go to this artwork and ground yourself and kind of understand more about like yourself, your health, and your community by just stopping and taking a moment to visualize any Indigenous artwork.
Beautiful. I like the idea of having a ripple effect, that even one painting can bring calm to that patient or that individual. So I know, like, speaking of a ripple effect and kind of like maybe the culmination of the work over the last 1.5 years or so that the team has been around. I know that you just released your Indigenous Health Services Plan, Journey to Reconciliation, so congratulations on that. Do you mind speaking about it, explaining what this Health Services Plan is and what you're aiming to accomplish with it?
So basically the plan is buckets of work, which then we will go out into the community and actually see what the community needs improvement on in those areas. So one of the areas is health and women's and babies. Those are just historically
areas of opportunity. Gotcha.
Areas of improvement. And when we go in there, we're actually taking what we're guided by the community. So the community tells us what's happening in there, what they feel is happening when they go in, and then we can kind of see that from the health side, and then work with the staff to be able to meet the Indigenous community where they're at when they come in, so that we're bridging those gaps and taking away those barriers. So we're actually going to the Indigenous community to hear firsthand and listen to the Indigenous community. So the plan was just kind of hosting those big buckets of work. Now there is lots of little buckets of work that need to be done. But that was just like the main bullet points. And so now we're going to go out in the community and really engage and just listen to them with anything. So we'll be going out and just having engagements and saying, okay, this is the big pillar, but how can we make this pillar smaller? And what would you like to see inside the hospital? And it's all guided by the community, as we can see that the community is kind of, it's very vocal to us, but it's very important to us to hear from the community, but then bring all of that in a safe way back to the hospital, and then have that support in the hospital. So then when they're here, they can still have that support. So if it's navigating just how to find the unit or how to bring the medicines to you, that's how the team can help.
Amazing. Is this team unique, or is this plan, unique to Niagara, or do we know if there's other teams across Canada that are working towards similar plans?
I can't really speak to the work that's happening in any of the other organizations, because we know that it's become a movement where there's a lot more of the work happening and a lot more of the teams coming. I don't know specifically about, individual organizations having plans like what we have, but I know that the approach that we've taken here at Niagara Health has been really effective and really successful in ensuring that, we have a team to do this work and that we are valued within the organization. Our plan aligns with the strategic plan, which means that, we're engaging with all levels of staff, the board, the community. So it's giving us a lot of visibility. It's giving the organization a lot of accountability, right? Because now we've put all of this out there, and it's up to us and the organization to make sure that we follow through on these things. And we work really closely with a lot of other Indigenous staff within other hospitals, and because we're hoping to, push and keep that movement happening for the betterment of all Indigenous people across the country. So it's exciting to know that, there are tables of Indigenous hospital leaders. There are tables of Indigenous navigators. There are all of these roles that previously it was like you had one for all of, the Niagara region. And it was the one person can't do that. We have a significant population here, really complex needs, and just knowing that, we're all doing the work to support each other and really like hold organizations accountable to what, walk the walk. Yeah. So it's exciting.
Mm-hmm. I think thinking about it, there's always been, I'm thinking in context of what I've heard in terms of like women in business or workplaces, but there was a TED talk regarding like, it's not enough to just fight for a seat at the table, like just having that seat doesn't necessarily mean that everything that you need to thrive in that environment is there, and that it does take further work than just that seat.
Absolutely.
Just that one individual representation.
Yeah. And it is really important that, we stand together as community, whether we're in the hospital, in community organizations, in other, professional situations, that we hold each other up, because you do deal with a lot of really challenging situations and questions and things that if you are alone in your role, they can tear you down and it can get really tiring. So in whatever way we can, whether it's just as a friend to be like, we hear you, we're here to support you. Staff throughout the hospital, maybe they haven't even identified that they're Indigenous to their colleagues. We support them. It's come spend time with us. We're happy to walk with you and just try and build everybody up so that, it isn't just a seat, that it is a movement and that we are all walking together. So
I think it's important that everyone on the team is Indigenous relationship specialists. So we're all specialized in some sort of area, but we're all just building those relationships with the community, but also with the staff. So it's all about how they can better themselves so that they can better their patients. So I think that's really good, like even aligning with the strategic plan, like putting people first, because it's also people as staff, but people as the patients.
Mm-hmm. It kind of goes right into my next question in terms of, as someone who's not part of the Indigenous community, what can I do to support Indigenous patients or this movement that we're talking about?
Do your work.
Do my work. Research.
A lot about it is, a lot of the hard work or the heart work is that understanding who you are, where you come from, and what privileges that maybe has provided you, and how different things, whether it's education or media, has shaped your views and perspectives, and really question them, right? And sit in that space of understanding how you can positively or negatively impact a situation. If you hear something and you don't speak up, now what's the ripple effect of that, right? So I think it really starts with that, with people acknowledging that it's one thing to say that you're interested and you want to be a part of it. It's another thing to say, I saw, there's all of these different movies that have come out. There's a lot of media attention around Lily Gladstone, who is an Indigenous activist and actress, and they're doing phenomenal work. So it's the how can you engage and learn even from those things, right? Not only Dances with Wolves and things like that, but there's a lot of really great media that's coming out. So just keep researching and then ask questions. That's one of the biggest things. And I think one of our biggest strengths as a team being on site is come and see us, ask us questions. We're happy to spend time with you. And it's more dangerous when people choose not to engage and ask questions and just pretend it doesn't happen. So we really, really pride ourselves on being an open door, safe space for people to come and have those challenging questions. And as we move through cultural awareness training and things like that, making sure that if there's something they don't understand, ask us. If we don't have the answer, we're happy to connect you. We don't know everything about everything, but we can share our own experiences and we can provide other resources and supports that may help you understand better. But it has to be that balance of we're happy to share, but you have to do some of your own work as well.
Definitely. And I think people are scared to misspeak when really asking those questions sometimes that's how you're going to learn. And sometimes you do have to risk looking like I just actually don't know anything about this in order to actually learn and move forward. So I think I definitely appreciate everything that you said, and I know that I'm going to take that back with me and bring it to everything that I do as well. Just even as I'm thinking in the context of what HealthHub does with our bedside terminals, providing those resources to people about your team, for instance, or other Indigenous teams, having that information starts the wheel turning. If you make it easily accessible and ensuring that everyone gets the individual care that they need.
Yeah, I think it's about just having a relationship with Indigenous people so that you can have that two-way conversation where it's okay to not know and just ask and feel okay that you don't know. As Indigenous people, we understand that not everyone knows everything. No one knows everything, but to be able to just be forward with it and just be I don't know how to ask this question, or I don't even know anything about this, but I just want to be able to have that conversation. So a lot of it is just having conversations in our office to just build relationship and learn more about us, and we learn more about the staff and what their role is too.
And it's always being reminded that, because all of my life I've done advocacy and support for individuals and community, and so now it's oh yes, but we're also supporting the staff, right? So when there is a concern and you're talking to the different staff members, and then they'll bring something up oh well, I'm not really sure about that, or how can we go about that? And then they come up with all these different wonderful ideas that we never even thought about as a team. And then we're oh, okay, what is that? What does that look like? So just remembering that and letting them know, I'm not here, as patient relations, I'm here to, address a concern, listen to what had happened. But at the same time, I'm also here to help staff. And most of the time what staff wants is further education so that they can provide better outcomes to their individual patients. And then usually from the patient side is they're always asking to be heard, right? So it's really working out in a way that in my role as patient relations, being able to go within the different departments and the different units and meeting with people where they're at and trying to address the concern in real time is building those relationships, and then learning from all the wonderful feedback that I get from not just the staff, but from the patients. And then how can we blend these two things now that we've learned from this experience and move forward to make it not only better for the next person coming in, but create a whole safer space and movement in general within those spaces. So it's just, like I said, it's a lot of different things come up, but they're all wonderful and great things that are coming up in order to make change.
Absolutely. And I guess the next question would be, what's next? What do you guys have anything in the works? What I guess is next in your bucket to tackle?
I think one of the primary focuses for the rest of this year is a lot of education, right? Because as an organization, it's really hard to provide training to a 24/7 staff of 8,000 people. So it's really making sure that, we get that cultural awareness training out and integrated for all of the staff, really focus in on, different departmental trainings, things like that, working to create some specialized training for areas like our emergency departments and really understanding bias and how that impacts healthcare. And then moving into all of the super exciting stuff. Shyan's like,
I was like, I know we had excitement.
So just like we have our emergency department art, there is now the outpatient mental health actually came to the Indigenous team, and they would like to add artwork into their outpatient mental health units, and that's to the same thing, to create that safer space for patients, and again, a place to ground, just as if you are going to your appointments, that you have somewhere to kind of just stop and just let that go, but to have that visual healing art in front of you, that art is that way to actually provoke those feelings inside of you, and then can be really grounding. So if having that inside of the hospital is another wellness tactic, but also it's an Indigenous way to actually have that wellness inside the hospital. We're bridging those gaps, and we're bridging the Western and traditional to come together and to have that two-eyed seeing. So that's why the artwork has been called out to community. So we're asking for Indigenous artists to send in applications. So we're hoping that in the fall 2024 that we will unveil 3 pieces at all 3 main sites at Niagara Health, to support all patients in their journey through the outpatient mental health units.
Are those artists, the call for the artist and artwork, is that only for Niagara Region residents, or can that be?
So we kind of opened it to anyone who had connection to the Niagara region. So you could have been born here, but you may have moved on since then. You can still apply. You may work or play in this area. You can still apply. So yeah, any connection to the Niagara Indigenous community can apply.
Amazing. I know this room that we're actually in has some significance. Does anyone want to talk about that?
Well, I also just wanted to talk about something briefly before that. So in my role also as patient relations, it will be calling on community for all kinds of new and exciting things, because we want Indigenous representation within patient partners, within volunteers, and even at a board level. So we're going to be doing all of these different things where we'll be creating these pathways for the community members to be part of Niagara Health in various ways, especially with the volunteers. And then, yes, we do have this new community space that we have, where we're in the process of acquiring. And we have all kinds of wonderful, amazing ideas on how we can use this space, and it's awesome. So,
yeah,
I'm very excited to see what comes next for your team. That is all the questions I have for you. I really thoroughly enjoyed our conversation and taking the time to sit down with you and learn more and know where I have my homework to do as well. Is there anything else that you would like to shout out? Where can people find you?
On SourceNet.
Referrals through Meditech with the nurses or the clinical staff. We have postcards that have our QR codes on there, where they are able to reach any of us on the team, and then we can triage to the person that would best suit the needs at that moment.
We all have our personal work cell phones, so we have business cards that we can hand out if you know who you are looking to find.
And all of our information's on the website. So
I was going to say, it's like we will definitely link the website in the video description. We'll have links to your healthcare plan, ways that HealthHub is supporting equity in health, or supporting healthcare equity. And then our CEO has Indigenous background as well, so we'll include that story. So definitely lots of learning to do. Yeah. So again, just thank you so much for being here with me today. It's truly been wonderful.
Thank you.
So until next time, goodbye.